Welcome to VibeSense. Today, we're diving into a high-stakes standoff over Russian oil that's pitting two of the world's biggest democracies against each other. It's a really fascinating story about energy, global power, and a multi-billion-dollar tariff wall. So at its very heart, this is a clash of priorities that, for both sides, are pretty much non-negotiable. On one hand, you have the United States using its economic muscle to pressure India into cutting its energy ties with Russia. But on the other hand, India is pushing back hard, arguing that its energy security, its economic stability, has to come first. This fundamental disagreement is really what's fueling this whole thing. So, how did we get here? Let's take a closer look at the moves the US made to build up this so-called tariff wall. Yeah, this definitely didn't happen overnight. The White House started laying the groundwork back in April, declaring a national emergency on trade and rolling out these broad global tariffs. Then, by July, they started fine-tuning them for different countries. But things really escalated in August, when a whole new set of tariffs was aimed specifically at Indian imports. That was the move that marked a direct economic challenge to New Delhi. And this is the number that's right at the center of the storm. An extra 25% tariff slapped on a whole range of Indian goods coming into the US. And what's more, White House officials have even hinted that this isn't the end of it. For some products, they're suggesting that number could climb as high as 50%. So you've got to ask, why the laser focus on India? Well, this economic pressure isn't random at all. It really all boils down to one specific issue: India's continued and actually growing purchase of discounted Russian oil. The tariffs are just the tool, right? The real goal is to change India's energy policy. In response, India has not been quiet, not at all. It's mounted a very public, very direct, and totally unapologetic defense of its energy policy, framing the whole thing as a matter of national interest. In this quote from India's ambassador to Russia, Vinay Kumar, just perfectly captures their official stance. The message is crystal clear. India's number one responsibility is to its own economy and its own people. And that means it will go wherever it can to get the most cost-effective energy. They're calling the US tariffs both unfair and completely unjustified. India's External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, has taken this argument even further. He's forcefully said that not only are these purchases essential for India, but hey, by buying up this Russian crude, India is actually helping stabilize the volatile global energy markets for everybody. And his message to critics of the refined products made from this oil is pretty blunt. If you don't like it, don't buy. So when you hear Indian officials talking about energy security, what are they really talking about? Well, it's not some abstract idea. We're talking about really tangible results: keeping inflation under control by managing fuel prices, powering their massive economy, and protecting the country from really crippling supply shocks. And right now, Russian oil is absolutely central to that strategy. And you can see the sheer scale of this strategy right here. Just take a look at one of India's biggest refiners, Reliance Industries. Their intake of that discounted Russian crude has reportedly just surged. It now makes up nearly half of their total supply. This isn't just a small tweak, it's a massive shift in their entire energy supply chain. And building on that, the Indian government argues this isn't just about protecting their own economy. The oil minister has put out a pretty stark warning, saying that if you force India to suddenly stop buying this oil, it wouldn't just hurt India. He predicts it would yank a massive buyer out of the market and create a supply crunch that could send global oil prices skyrocketing to somewhere between $130 and $140 a barrel. Okay, so this is a high-level geopolitical battle for sure, but it's having very real-world consequences. So who's actually winning and who's losing from this standoff right now? Well, the impact inside India is a real mixed bag. You've got some clear winners and some very clear losers. The refiners, they're definitely benefiting from that cheap Russian crude, which in turn helps shield consumers from high prices at the gas pump. But the manufacturers in those sectors hit by tariffs, we're talking textiles, diamonds, they are losing and losing badly. And we're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet here. In places like India's diamond hub, which is a huge export industry, that 25% US tariff has caused immediate pain. We're hearing reports that new orders have just stalled, companies are starting layoffs, and a huge wave of uncertainty is sweeping through the whole sector. But despite these hits to specific industries, if you zoom out, the bigger picture looks a bit more resilient. Ratings agencies like Fitch are still giving India a stable rating. They're pointing to strong domestic demand and are still projecting growth of around 6.5%. But, and this is a big but, They are explicitly flagging these U.S. trade actions as a key downside risk that could threaten that whole positive outlook. So where does this high-stakes game of diplomatic and economic chess go from here? The next few weeks are absolutely critical. So there are a few key things that could break this deadlock. First, you've got to keep an eye on that August 27th tariff deadline. Then, watch the oil markets. If that Russian discount shrinks, the whole calculation changes for India. And you'll want to look for any signs of the U.S. escalating things, like going after shipping or insurance. Or on the flip side, maybe signs of de-escalation, like specific industries managing to lobby for exemptions. Ultimately, this whole standoff forces a really critical question for India. Is the immediate benefit of cheap energy worth the long-term cost of a trade war with a key partner like the U.S.? Both paths carry a seriously hefty price, and right now, it is anyone's guess which one will prove to be more costly in the end. Thanks for watching VibeSense.